While we're talking about these matters over in France, things get worse with the migration crisis in Europe. And you would have thought that they would have woken up by now and realised, hang on a minute, people aren't quite on board with the direction that Europe is going. I mean, just look at the EU elections, just look at the elections in France, for instance. Have a look at the elections across Europe, where people have fundamentally been turning to right-wing parties that are running on an anti-immigration basis, much like Reform in the UK is now doing and will romp it in next time they have a general election there. But outside of parliaments, you've got to deal with courts, and a court in France, the National Court of Asylum, has decided that every single person who lives in Gaza now has the right to asylum in France. They can register as refugees. Now, this all started on the basis of a case of two people, a mum and a son, who had fled Gaza basically straight after October the 7th and tried to get into France as refugees, and they were denied access as refugees because they were deemed to not be persecuted at the time. But the court has now changed its mind. This is from a report in Europe. It says the CNDA, that is the National Court of Asylum that I just mentioned, the judges ruled that the conditions had changed in Gaza and that the persecution by the Israeli army was now systematic and widespread. Based on their case, the CNDA ruled on Friday, July 11th, that's Friday just gone, that any Palestinian asylum seekers could benefit from the same protection as this mother and son on the grounds that they were persecuted because of their nationality. And if basically these two have been allowed in, fundamentally because they lived in Gaza, it means it's open for everyone now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm not sure if it's kind of the same thing. I don't think it's really. I think these people would have been obviously in danger after the October 7 attacks and Israel's retaliation, and so they would have been in danger of dying. I'm not sure if that's the same thing as persecution, as in, an ethnic minority who can't actually live within the boundaries of their country because their own government is sort of seeking them out to try and purge them. Yes, what Israel has done, you can say, was extremely heavy-handed, and it's bombing them, and aid is very limited. But I'm not sure if being the victim of a war is the same as being the victim.
But that's the problem, because that's what the court is basically saying is persecution.
And that's the fundamental problem with the case. You're saying that the IDF, that the Israeli government is persecuting all 2 million people that live in Gaza. Sure, conditions are horrendous. It is a war. But fundamentally, Israel's war is not against Gazans. It's against Hamas. And they're not going out of their way to target Palestinians. In fact, they take more precautions to limit civilian casualties than pretty much any army in history. It also says that they're being persecuted on the basis of their nationality. I don't know how that works, given 20% of Israel is Palestinian, Arab, and they are not persecuted, and France does not recognize the state of Palestine. So what is this mysterious nationality? I don't know. Being a victim of a war does not qualify you to be a refugee. And the other thing is, why are none of Gaza's Arab neighbours taking in these refugees? Why will Jordan not take them in, given Palestinians are 50 to 60% of their population already? Maybe there's a reason.
Well, they won't take them because the Palestinian is basically the victim's victim, and they don't want to do the surrounding countries of what they would call the dirty work of Israel, basically by saying, we'll let you send all of those people over there so you can have the land. They would rather keep Palestinians in Palestine in danger for the purpose of not ceding land to Israel. And I know that courts are allowed to create case law, as they have in this circumstance. But the idea that a court with the stroke of a pen can say that everyone from a region of the world has a right to move to your country, in this case France, is insane. Because surely, as a sovereign nation, you ought to have the right to decide who you do and don't want to come in on the basis of potential ideologies or beliefs or whatever else. And this court is saying, no, bugger all of that. You just open the door. Everyone come in. This has caused massive problems in Europe already, and they're just adding another lot on top.
Yeah, and the thing that I think a lot of people either don't understand or forget is that prior to the October 7 terrorist attack by Hamas, Gaza was basically an autonomous province. It it ran its own affairs. It didn't have any foreign policy. It didn't have a standing up. But Gaza ran itself. And Israel was very happy for that because they thought it's just too dangerous for our troops to be in there. We don't want anything to do with it. You guys just run it yourselves. And there were, different complaints about the quality of life there versus in Israel and all that sort of stuff. But so the people who actually put the Gazans in danger weren't Israel, it was actually Hamas. So to be honest, if Gazans actually came and said, we are being persecuted by our own government, Hamas, who are exploiting us and using us as human shields and depriving us of food and water and other vital supplies, which they steal for their own militants, I would give them asylum any day of the week.
Well, they are. There have been anti-Hamas protests by Gazans very bravely risking their lives to speak out against the jihadist regime, and a lot of them have been tortured as a result. So they do exist.